Likkutei, Parshas Pinchas, 154, second column, 6 lines in the end of the page. Okay, now the Rabbi was explaining the whole Inyan of Karbanis is bringing down this fire from Likkutei down here all the way down, and then he starts explaining, but now we understand why it's from a sheep and not from an ox. So he says, an ox taka comes from the short of the Merkava, but the sheep is much more edel, much more refined. It's the level of Rachmim, the voice is Rachmim, and the wool is what you make the garments from, which is the Makifim, the Levushim, and so on. So and then he starts explaining that what's the level of Basik Gidim Vatzomes. He says that the bones come from the Moyach, and the Basik comes from the Dam, which is the heart. So therefore one is Seichel, one is Midas, and he says like this. This level of das, that we understand the greatness of Hashem. Kol chad from shiur delay. Every person according to his ability. And based on his level, that's the level of the atzomis. That's the bones. Das is a level of bones. In other words, Al Rebbe is explaining like this, that the bones come from the mayach, and the basar comes from the dam. So he explains that das, on the feeling alokutz, that comes from the atzomis, that comes from the mayach, the bones that come from the mayach. And he says, Agam shamidas in lefi adas vasaga. L'chayra, midas are also coming, not only seichel, l'chayra, why is midas? He says like this: the bones come from the brain, and the meat comes from the dam, which is the heart. So he says, l'chayra, midas also come from das. Midas also are created from the intelligence. Seichel stimulates midas. A child on its level, an adult on its level, he says, when das creates a midah, it's not the essence of das coming into the midah. It's an external level of das, because das itself is seichel. He says, because the meditation is in the greatness of Hashem, which is limited. And your malchus, which is the malchus of the world, calls Hashem is no beginning and Hashem is no end. So when a person meditates into the greatness of Hashem, what are they meditating in? The way Hashem is no beginning and no end, and Meshalto b'chol dar v'dar sheb'chol eilamim, that in every world, u'b'chol dar v'dar, in every generation, meaning eilam and nefesh, time and place, and nefesh, and also shana nimshachas arein tzav baruch hu, like it says l'asapani minei, that there's no place where Hashem doesn't exist. V'imkein, I have to read this and explain. He says, intellect, if the intellectual meditation into the infinite level of Hashem, not only the infinite level of Hashem, that Hashem has no beginning and so on, they will become bottled b'metzias. Now the Rebbe says this. Das creates midas, but das, which is meditation, deep, becoming one with the meditation, subjectively that you feel it, that only is a slight revelation that stimulates midas. Why? Because if meditation is into the infinite level of Hashem, that there is no place where God doesn't exist, Ein Eid Milvadei, and not only he has no end, but he has no beginning, and it's in every time and place. In worlds and time and in Elam Shana Nefesh, he says, if that would come by itself into Midas couldn't handle it. There were plots. Like he quotes the Gemara, they put the little finger amongst the Malachim and the Sarf, and they all got burnt because they can't handle it. Ella, Hasaga mislabeshes b'mides, this hasaga that stimulates midas and dresses itself into the midas is a ha'adamitz and samis ma'at mizeh, is a very limited amount of saga shebemeach, which comes down lislabish belev makam amidas. And that's the concept of the veins. That is the level that connects the veins with the meat. Yeah, the veins with the meat, he says, no, not the veins with, what connects the meat with the bones? That's the veins that bring the blood. Now the veins are very tiny. The veins bring a very limited amount of blood. So das that comes into midas is a very, very limited level of das, because if das itself will come into the midah, you can't love and fear something that's way beyond you. It's not going to work. Midas have to be according to your seichel. If the seichel is an infinite, essential meditation that the neshama can handle, but the midas can't. So he says, what is that? To let people know his gvur, his limitations. That's the gvur and the tzimtzum of the derech gidim dakim al derech mashul through the thin veins. Okay, this is now this is a parenthesis until the end of the paragraph.
So somebody is also that Torah, the veins are going to get bigger.
The brain gets bigger.
No, we use more of its brain.
The brain actually gets bigger. So this says the brain gets bigger, and I remember the Melech told us that after Einstein died, Einstein, the original, they opened his brain, and his brain was bigger.
Right now we're using 10% of the brain.
Very little. So I have a shaila now. A smarter person means they use more of the brain, or the brain is stuck bigger. No. He's saying a statistic that's known that we only use 10% of our brain's capability. Oh, yeah, now, so a person who's smarter, does that mean he uses more of the brain, or the brain is a different type of a brain?
For sure he uses more of his brain.
Yeah, but maybe it's a different type of brain also. Is it only that you're using more makes you smarter? I don't know what the answer is to that. I always thought about that. I'm sure it's the brain itself is bigger, is better.
But what is interesting is saying that the thing cannot come as it is because it's too much power.
Das itself cannot come itself.
Has to limit itself.
Correct.
So smaller so we can't handle it.
That's why the blood from the heart can't come the way it's in the heart itself, because then the limbs would explode. So it has to go through the very thin veins. So the same thing, das coming into midas, the meditation coming into midas is a very limited amount. So therefore, he says, even though midas come from das, but intellect is the level of the bones, and midas are the level of the heart. That's what he's saying.
So therefore there is a room for improvement constantly.
Okay, what?
Room for improvement. Where you could open it more and more and more, and you can get more and more.
Even if a person uses 100% of his brain, you can still improve. If somebody learns 24 hours a day straight, how can they improve? There's quantity and quality. Quantity you can't improve, but quality you can improve. You use your brain. The question, how much of it? You can always use more. Okay, Gimel. So now he says, Mi'ata Yuvin, Gamkim B'Tfilah. Now the Rebbe is explaining that you have the concept of Kabbanis, and now Tfilah is instead of Kabbanis. That means whatever Kabbanis accomplished, like you said, it brings down all this level of Elokus, Ishay, Yisrael, Sfilasim, and that whole thing. It says like this. Shekaneged, She's Bain, is Bigdullah, saying so Baruch Hu. Because what is davening? Davening is not zooming through the words. Davening is meditation. In fact, one of the meaning of the word tefillah is to judge. Lefalel means to judge. Tefillah means a person makes a judgment with himself, where he is and where he should be as far as godless sakel. And he meditates, that nothing exists by Hashem. And nothing is in comparison to Him. Even more, it's more nothing than one drop of water compared. Yama Kanayis represents the whole ocean system of the world. He says, one drop of water, can you imagine one drop of water, even the Pacific Ocean, is nothing. But that's finite with finite. How much more so is one word that created the whole universe compared to the essence of Hashem? It's mamash nothing. So he says, when a person meditates in the level of das, and as the Alter Rebbe says in Paragimel of Tanya, das means binding yourself to it, meaning it's constant. And not that the meditation goes away right after davening. When it's taka in emes, meaning it's continuous 24/7, from this level of das, comes down the order that comes down through the thin veins, to the meat that comes from the blood of the heart, which is Market Amidas Shabbanefesh Shabamis, which is the source of Midas, of the Nefesh Shabamis, Avada, the Taivas Gashmis, Vinitzur, Vizpaidas, all the, the negative Midas, Ava, Yira, Taivas, victory, this Kafin, Al Hafram, the Kedusha, to try and break them and transform them to Kedusha. Hamisgalis, Mizbein, Migdor, things of Baruch, which meditates into the greatness of Hashem. So he says, what's the ultimate concept of davening? And like we said, Rabbi Yechon says a person should daven, a person davens a whole day. Again, what does that mean he should daven a whole day? He should be in the state of mind of constantly bound, the intellect is bound to Hashem 24/7. Because as Alter Rebbe says in Tanya about the Beinani, if it's only there during davening, and after davening it's not there anymore, so then even during davening it wasn't emes, real emes. The Alter Rebbe calls it emes anyway, but he says it's not real emes. With your two hearts, with the two yetzes. Even the yetzahara. Where it dwells in the heart. The on the left side, which is full of blood, that Yosef Lavasi should also come to love Hashem. That's what davening is. What's the union of Kabbanis? Taking a be'ema and being makriv it on the Mizbeach. And he says the bones and the blood, and right, it's all being brought onto the Mizbeach. So the same thing, what is davening? Davening is sacrificing the animal soul of the person onto the Mizbeach. And that comes through the level of das, through the level of meditation. And by the way, it's why, according to Chassidus, it demands in davening, you should think Chassidus before davening. But there's two aspects. There's learning Chassidus before davening. That's one thing. And then there's meditating in what you learned. In other words, you can learn something very easily. You can learn it. You read it, you translate it, you know it. And then close the book and now meditate on what you just learned. That's much, 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 much harder. But if you're one with what you learned, then the meditation is there. In other words, it's just like when people learn things by heart, it actually sharpens the brain. People learn Mishayim by Pratanya, it actually sharpens the brain. It's very hard to memorize. You can learn it very easily. Then to memorize it's much harder than to learn it. So that's the avodah when you meditate, not with an open book. When you learn Chassidus, okay, this is what the Bachim are supposed to be doing. You're taught to do it, whatever. Or the Oivden used to daven. They learned the Maimer, and then they meditated for hours, and in middle, before, after, whatever. In the Maimer they learned, then it becomes more you than just through the learning. The learning, it doesn't show it's you. It shows what's you. Like it says, a guy can learn 18 hours a day. Yeah? Very nice. Taka learn 18 hours a day. And then he closes the book. The question is, what comes into his mind? Shtusim of world, or what he learned? If what comes into his mind when he's walking later in the street, what he learned, then he's one with what he learned. And if shtusim, what he sees in the street, whatever, falls into the head, that means the learning and him didn't become one. You can learn 18 hours a day. Another guy could learn an hour a day. But when he finishes learning, what falls into his head, what he was learning, then he became one with his learning, and this guy didn't become one with his learning. I'm not saying this is 18 hours, this is 1 hour, I'm not saying that. But what becomes more you? More you. And that's what Al Rebbe is saying. The meditation of which davening is all about is that it becomes engraved in your soul.
The Nekuda or the whole learning?
The whole learning. The whole learning.
You can get a Nekuda.
By the way, just for the record, I'm going on record, you could do it, we don't want to.
The mind is not.
You can meditate. Somebody, God forbid, has a problem in business. Big problem in business, yeah? Or whatever. What?
Big problem with what?
Business.
Oh.
Okay, the business touches the, yeah? So you only think about it during the hours of business, or you think about it afterwards too?
Even when you want to sleep.
You can't even sleep because of it. That's called das. Now, how can you think that? Because it touches you to the core. Correct? It touches you to the core, so therefore that's you. It becomes one with you. So why can't Torah be the same way? It could be. The answer is, we don't want it to be. The person could do it. And you see, in Gashmis, you could do it. If, God forbid, in negativity, you can have it. So in positivity, for sure, you can have it. We just don't want to. World is more interesting than godliness. Because in the world of Nefesh Habama's domination and control, that's what it is. Okay, let's go weiter. Okay, skip the 4 lines. Ve'inyan zemavor bekrishma. Shema Yisrael Meloshen Avona. This inyan of Dveikus and Das in meditation is alluded to in Krishma. Shema Yisrael, Shema means Loshen Havona. What are we meditating? El Shavai Elokeinu, Hu Echad Mamish. That Havai and Elokeinu, above nature, nature is all one. Ve'neid Milvade B'Shemayim Mimal. And there's only Hashem, nothing but Hashem. Shachayis Hanimshach B'Shemayim V'Oretz. That the chayis of Elokus that comes into heaven and earth is only ki Hashem Elokeinu is only a tzimtzum. In other words, the person realizes why is there no openly sensed godliness felt in the world? Because there's something called tzimtzum, and there's a concealment. Uktipa miyama kanai is like 1 drop compared to the ocean system. V'atipa chayis ahi, and this drop of water is klula miuchedes matzila mamish in the level of seviv kolam and shalamayim and ishtalshus, where over there ruchnis and gashmis shavan lefanik chashecha ka'edo. So he says, what is the meditation? You meditate in the realization that there isn't a place where Hashem doesn't exist, which means even one drop in the ocean, or in other places it says one drop of dirt compared to the dirt of the world, or the sand, one kernel of sand compared to the sand of the world, is a non-existent entity. A person won't hesitate to waste a drop of water. You have a drought, you spill it out. It means that doesn't mean anything. Yeah? Why? Because there's so much water, this doesn't mean anything. But if you realize this drop of water is connected to everything, to the essence of Hashem, that Ein Eid Milvadei, so then the bottom line is that everything is all the Elokus. That's what's called Ein Eid Milvadei. That's the whole meditation of davening, is not to say Ein Eid Milvadei, but to actually, not to think Ein Eid Milvadei, to feel that Ein Eid Milvadei.
You have to go beyond the Simpson. You have to think about beyond the Simpson.
Through the level of Tzimtzum, you come to the realization above Tzimtzum. When you realize that Hashem limited His infinite power into one drop of water, into one blade of grass. Yeah? And this drop of water or blade of grass has the essence of Hashem in it, which comes down through zillions and zillions of tzimtzum levels to come into a single drop of water. But in reality, the tzimtzum is only from our perspective. From Hashem's perspective, all it is Ein Eid Milvadei. And davening.
But yet you can touch it.
Yeah. They tell a story that Friedrich Rebbe was once verbringing. I don't know where it was, probably in Europe. His verbringing was very, schmack of verbringing, and it was getting late to daven mincha. So the Chassidim turned the clock back. You should verbring longer, you know what I mean? The Rebbe realized it, and he said, "What do you think?" He said, "The verbring, with one simple mincha, you connect to Atzmus. Instead, I don't want your Gan Eden, I don't want your verbringers. I want a simple mincha."
Wow.